Hello, everyone. This was a good week of chapters, and actually a pretty great week of chapters, with everything doing a lot better than I expected, and doing more than I expected from the last set of chapters about 2 weeks ago at this point, as we're now settling into the new year more fully. So we're going to start off with One Piece, chapter 1037, and this was a pretty great chapter with reveals of a sort, as well as the continued fight between Luffy and Kaido. That fight in particular really started to show that Luffy is on Kaido's level, as he's still just in regular form and is going one-on-one with him with no real issue, even getting the advantage on occasion as Kaido starts drinking as he's having fun, as the Flower Capital's Fire Festival starting to come to an end. So the battle between Luffy and Kaido starts ramping up, with Luffy even being able to dodge Thunder Baugia and kicking Kaido in the face, which was, for me, probably the hypest moment of this chapter, having it that Luffy is able to dodge the move that completely took him out of commission early in this arc, as well as the continued battle between them, showing that they continue to clash and that they're pretty much evenly matched, despite Kaido then getting drunk and going through every type of drunk phase you can imagine, from happy to sad to depressed to angry to sober. It was quite the few minutes for Kaido. And the biggest bombshell of this chapter is the fact that the Gorosei, the five elders, are talking about some devil fruit that they changed the name of, but yet is a fruit that not even they believe, that's apparently surfacing in Wano. It's weird, and I don't really have much of a theory on it at this point. I've seen several people from Otor to King of Lightning mention several different theories, but I just don't have one. I'm willing to see and let it play out and find out what it is. My first assumption was that the fruit was on Zou, and then next came, is it Zou itself? The island is actually a devil fruit. But at this point, there's just too much wild speculation and too much variation on this, too much variety here. So I'm not really going to speculate. There's just too many avenues to go down, and there's just not one that's even remotely close to seeming right, in my opinion. So at this point, that's the big bombshell. Just like the giant straw hat, it feels like it's one that'll be a mystery that's revealed later more than right now. He's just dropping a hint for people to start ravenously fan theorying about for another year, if not 2 years. We'll find out in the end, but for now, we just don't know. So overall, I think I'll give this chapter an A, just between the Kaido-Luffy fight and the bombshell about this new mysterious devil fruit, and Zunisha arriving, which I did admittedly just now remember, that Zunisha arrives at Wano to add to the allies now, meaning that is Zou as a whole, every mink on the island, going to help the Straw Hats? Is Big Mom's crew gonna fight Zunisha now? With Zou's arrival, it now leads to quite the mystery, as well as quite the power difference, as the balance of power now shifts from Kaido to Luffy's crew. Now, the Alliance looks like it's basically going to win, and that the Marines are now in trouble as well. So all the sides of this battlefield, the fronts are starting to shift ever so wildly. So the next few chapters should be exciting as they reach the climax of this act before we head into the next one, if we have a next one. So now we're on to Black Clover, chapter 319, and this was a pretty great chapter as well. This one was the continued beatdown of the captains by Lucifero, showing that the captains aren't even close to Lucifero in terms of strength. However, their resolve to show that they are the strongest in the kingdom is giving Lucifero a bit of a hesitation. Lucifero basically hates them because they should be bowing down and begging for lives, but they're not. Asta, of course, tries to ambush Lucifero, and what I'm assuming is about to happen is that Lucifero is about to make sure they all realize that none of them are on his level. Lucifero's been taking them down handily, and they even admit if it wasn't for Rill's magic, they wouldn't actually be able to stand, most of them. I'm assuming Marioleana would have been able able to, but most of them couldn't stand under his immense gravity pressure. But here they are fighting tooth and nail and getting completely destroyed. Not even close. Lucifero's not even breaking a sweat. That's how badly they're being beaten. So it'll be interesting to see how they lose this. Is it that Asta can't cut Lucifero and then Lucifero just outright destroys everyone, killing several of the captains who can't stay down? Will the other Supreme Devil get involved simply because he was bored and decided to get involved, wanted to protect Lucifero? Whatever. There's other enemies still afoot here, as the Cliffoth tree might have not have been finished, but it was enough that even major villains, major devils started to break through. So overall, I think I'll give this chapter a B. It was good being able to see Lucifero being able to handle the captains so thoroughly, but I am curious to see where it goes, as it does of course seem as though the heroes won't give up, as they never do, because that's their magic thanks to Asta. But I can't imagine them winning, as Lucifero is not even trying and is just downright destroying them and getting more and more pissed as he does. So next week should be a pretty fun one just on that merit alone. So now we're on to Undead Unluck chapter 94, and this was probably the most surprising chapter this week. It was excellent, as it starts out just as a normal chapter. They defeated Spring, and Andy realizes what he has to do in order to be able to be killed by Fuko's unluck. He had come to terms with the fact that he had simply been using her up to that point. He thought it was up to her to power up her unluck, but it's actually up to both of them. If he were to truly fall in love with her as well as she already has with him, then the unluck would hit him hard enough to kill him. And that's sort of the crux of the chapter, as they're getting ready to get on another adventure. They'll probably keep doing the missions, whatever they are, to eventually have him die. It seems all set up. It seems all nice. We're going to get more adventures. The whole thing, their relationship's very wholesome. The whole Under and Union seem collectively in agreement here as they continue to prepare for their inevitable battle with God. However, a new villain arrives and seemingly kills Fuko in one hit, stabs her right in the heart, as this character, this new character that arrived from shadows, it would appear, is seemingly like Andy and can't seem to die, or at least seemingly lives through different loops, as he had brought up those who survive the loops can't die that easily. And he kills Fuko for the most part, at least for now, as Andy then, enraged, cuts him in half, only to see that the others confirm that Fuko has no pulse. It was this moment that genuinely shocked me, and I think turned this specific chapter and the series as a whole on its head. It was jarring, but not in a horribly bad way, because it did seem as though we were about one hot second away from not having a villain. And out of nowhere, out of the comfort of an ending arc kind of celebration, a new villain arrives that's done worse stuff than Billy ever could, really. And Billy's heel turn was well done. This one is shocking in a good way. It's a good twist and a good shock moment that I imagine gets built upon quite well with the series going forward. And I'm curious to see who and what this villain is in the long run. So overall, I'm going to give this chapter an A. I thought it was excellent. The beginning kind of was just a normal Undead Unluck chapter. And then next thing you know, right towards the end, it changed to a whole new thing entirely. Having it that a new villain arrived, one that seemingly is on the equal caliber of Andy for once, and seems to be the type that would be elusive to the group as they try to heal Fuko. Leaving it that Andy now has to try to fight this guy and hunt him down simply because he tried to kill Fuko, and adds a new element of fear to the story, as now none of our characters are really safe from this guy, especially as we learn what he is eventually. So I'm very excited. I think this was probably one of the best chapters they've done in its more or less early tenure, as we've had this huge long arc for so long. Now to get another one with a very, at least, strong starting villain. Who knows, maybe he ends up being weak as the arc goes on, but for right now, he started off very strong with nearly killing killing one of the main characters of the series. So I'm excited to see where it goes from here and who this guy really is. So now we're on to Mashle, Magic and Muscles, chapter 92, and this was a good chapter as it's the conclusion of the Mash versus Rose Quartz fight, showing that Rose Quartz is rather soft to a degree. He has some level of kindness to him, but he's not very honest with himself. And then it moves on to Mash versus Demina. It just goes right into the main event of the entire thing. We don't get to see any of the other guys fight their respective battles, though we probably will as Demina and Mash battle across the entirety of this magical mansion they're in. So for now, we at least get the beginning standoff between Mash and Demina, with Demina using underhanded tactics to try to drop Mash into a endless abyss, only to have it that Mash is somehow able to walk up the wall of the abyss and have a stare off while he's sticking out of the wall. It's ridiculous and great. And the battle there will be very interesting to see, as even Rose Quartz doesn't believe that Mash has any chance at all against Demina, as Demina was able to stop a divine visionary when he was very young, and basically no one can stop him now. So it's up to Mash to try to find a way to do what Mash always does, which is win in impossible situations. So overall, I think I'll give this chapter a B. It was a nice, good, standard chapter of Mashle. It was fun, it was good, it was crazy, and Mash goes up against another strong opponent and is completely confident in his abilities to be able to win. So I look forward to seeing what he pulls out to win this fight, as well as what Demina does, and if we see any of the other minor-ish characters like Abel and his friend and all of the others. I look forward to seeing if we see any of them, as well as just this battle between brothers, in a manner of speaking. So now we're on to Sakamoto Days, chapter 54, and this was another great chapter by Sakamoto Days, and in this chapter it's just the simple conclusion of the Slur versus Sakamoto fight, having it that the old man arrives and pretty much does everything in his power to make sure that the whole building pretty much gets destroyed, and shows off his power. He starts cutting up all sorts of the villains. Well, Uda, the one villain that Slur picked up in his rampage up through the tower they were in, up through the building, he ends up attacking the old man and pretty much dying in the process fairly quickly. It wasn't even a challenge for the old man, as the other friend of Slur, who's seemingly more skilled, ends up giving up his arm to try to get rid of the old man. But Slur seemingly had enough and did not plan on fighting the old man, and was planning to get away by using Uda to blow up the entire building, which Uda does. Sakamoto was able to save Shin and apart, but was more or less injured himself, as he was already injured by Slur by this point. Slur, however, seemingly came away pretty much unscathed and taunted Sakamoto before leaving. The old man up and disappeared, so I'm assuming that he just left and will hunt down everyone as it continues. But it would seem as though by the end of this chapter, because of what Slur had done, the JAA lost most of its members through the assassin purge of Slur killing as many people as he did within the building. This led to a lot of them quitting, and so now the JAA is down to a quarter of what it once was, meaning that there are only the real elite left. So I'm assuming Sakamoto will kind of rejoin them to help take down Slur. So I'm very curious to see where this arc ends up going, and to see if, for example, Apart joins them or not, because that's still somewhat up in the air, as well as just simply where does the story go from here. Now Slur had threatened Sakamoto's family. Are they safe? Will they come back? I assume they will, but you never know. Will the whole gang join the JAA and start training so that they could try to take down Slur? Will they just go back to their everyday life and kind of ignore it until Slur kind of makes a move again? All these good questions and all these different paths this whole story can take, and I look forward to the whole thing. So overall, I think I'll give this chapter an A, just between the fight with the old man and the villains, as well as the whole implication of where this story can go from here after this ginormous event had occurred. So that was all of the chapters that I mostly cover. They were all very good, with a few shocking moments between Undead Unluck and a new villain arriving for them, to Sakamoto and Black Clover having their villains really set the tone for how down bad the heroes are against these specific villains. And One Piece was just very good, as well as Mashle. So now for everything else, Dr. Stone was very good, as their problems in space continue, as well as now we get to have the Captain Kid arrive to save the day and fulfill his dream of being in space. So now there are 4 of them, and I look forward to seeing however they overcome their new current electrical problems on the space station. Jujutsu was fine, just continued with its battle, and it looks like the secondary main character is going to win his fight. Mission Yuzakura Family was very funny. It had it where the youngest brother, Nanao, being obsessed with keeping everyone healthy as he can't do anything for the main female character. And again, it's very cute. The whole family gets to shine in these types of chapters. Nice small scale and continued character building between everyone. You then had the elusive samurai, where the annoying villain character that had arrived is completely and utterly dispatched, mostly because our main character is able to convince him that they're on the same side, and he gives him what the quote-unquote villain brat child, what he desires, but it ends up being not what he really wants, as the main character finally gets a breath of freedom from our main mentor character. Then we're on to P times 6, and this was an interesting chapter, seeing as how Lucky's sister is a bit more villainous than I had originally thought, and I could imagine that through Lucky learning more about music composition, that he ends up appreciating her freedom of performance or something akin to that. I'm not sure. I imagine that they'll end up getting close at the end of this, and she changes her tune as more of the siblings start going to Lucky's side. So I'm curious, and I look forward to seeing how all of that runs as it goes on. Then you had Ashimon, which was good. The main villain is proving to be quite the nuisance for our main heroes, and our main hero is an idiot and continues to plan on fighting headlong against an enemy he has absolutely really no hope of victory against, but he's going to find a way to win, or at least really impress him, or escape. Full stop. I don't know. But I look forward to seeing where it goes from there. Blue Box was fine, and Doron was another good chapter, as we see a pseudo major villain arrive, a major monster that seemingly killed the main character's mom, and we'll see if vengeance is too much for him to listen to his monster partner. I'm curious. It's a fun series, and I look forward to seeing if it continues to have a relatively good paced story and fun characters to go along. It gives me Yo-Yo Hakusho vibes, and the fact that they're just a bunch of weirdos fighting for what they feel is right type of deal. It's not quite 1-to-1. They're not really similar, but it just gives me that these guys are just a bunch of weird characters, and that is fun on occasion. I enjoy that. So that was all of the chapters. It was a pretty great week overall. I enjoyed pretty much every chapter, and I look forward to the next set of chapters. There's no One Piece next week, so we'll have to wait and see on whatever news is going to happen there for a little while longer. But everything else is still back, so we'll be getting back to our regularly scheduled programming and do this every week. So if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, and as always, thank you for watching.